And then finally, the bill puts into effect provisions related to how the Department of Human Services must license and investigate and oversee placements for foster care outside of the state of Oregon. And I wanted to take a minute to talk about this because it's really important to put on the record why we need this legislation, because other states need this legislation too. You will recall last year you heard more from me than you wanted to about these 87 children that were in other states. I just checked with the Department of Human Services. Thanks to all of the good work that all of you helped do in the department, today there are 5, and they should all be back in Oregon within the next couple of weeks, and I'm really grateful to the department for that. Most of these children were placed with a facility called Sequel. Sequel is the big company that oversees these small places, and they're very charming. I was there with the good senator from Southwestern Oregon in January. In Kalamazoo, we visited one of these places. This is important because while we were there, we were talking with the CEO, who is very charming, and we were having a debate, and I expressed to him I was afraid of the policies across Sequel around seclusion and restraint, and that if they kept restraining kids the way that they did, a child was going to die. That was at Lakeside Academy in Kalamazoo the last week of January. On May 1st, a Michigan boy named Cornelius Frederick died after he was put in a restraint at Lakeside, just steps from where the good senator and I stood. In accordance with Sequel policies, according to the individuals who have now been charged with manslaughter, there were 7 men at a time laying across this child. 2 of them weighed more than 200 pounds, 1 of them over 300 pounds. Cornelius had thrown a piece of bread. That's what led to the restraint, and he shouted that he could not breathe. After they ended the 12-minute restraint with these 7 men laying on top of him, they stood and watched him as he was lifeless for 12 minutes before they called 911 and brought anyone to assist them. EMS came, he was taken to the hospital. It turned out that he had COVID, asymptomatic, at which point it turned out that 40 students at Lakeside had COVID, as well as 17 staff. Colleagues, we have 2 children in our child welfare system that have tested positive for COVID. None of those contracted COVID in the state of Oregon. Sequel had something to do with that. Now, colleagues, Sequel owns all of these programs, and that very restraint that caused Cornelius to die is the one that I talked to you all about that was happening to our 9-year-old and our 10-year-old at a facility in Illinois. It's the same restraint that we've had kids tell us about. They are deadly, and this corporation is dangerous. That is why we need this legislation. It cannot be enough to have pretty facilities. I think the good senator was there with me. The facility was pretty. It looked nice. The people said the right things. You can't just know by looking at a picture and reading a brochure. You need access to the materials that this requires that our state look at if we place a child out of state. We have to have collaboration with other states so that we can see all of the records about all of the kids, so that it is not the facility telling us that that was just a one-off, because they are very good at selling their product, and their product is taking our kids and making a lot of money off of them. Now, I don't know if the good senator knows this yet, but it turns out the very day we were there were investigators there investigating a case of sexual abuse that had occurred right around us. That was happening around us that day. They did not disclose that. And when we went to get on the airplane and the company told us that they were going to be disclosing issues, I got a Google alert about a person at Northern Illinois Academy who had been arrested because she restrained a 13-year-old autistic boy by his neck until he passed out. We had been with the CEO, the compliance officer, the ethics officer 2 hours before that, in which they said that they were disclosing all of these types of things to us. So colleagues, I'm very proud to bring this bill. I thank you all for this work. I thank the department for bringing these children home. I also really hope that other states will look at this framework that we have put together, because this organization has 2,000 children. Our kids are back, but there's 2,000 other kids out there, And I don't know about you, but I am not stopping until that organization has no more access to harm kids that have already suffered so much. Mr. President, thank you, and I urge your aye vote.